when it was first used. So I'm glad it can be
in your own time.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the University of Bradford and Proctor and Hobbs mock trial competition. This is the first of a series of collaboration between the University of Bradford School of Law and Proctor and Hobbs, a solicitors firm in the city of Bradford, to engage our students and provide opportunities for them to develop their skills, practical legal skills, and other basic skills that will be essential for them for their work going into the future. We also want to create a bit of a buzz, a bit of excitement, because after all, law is not boring, it is exciting. And we have a series of really interesting cases to just whet your appetite a little bit for those of you who are already into law. And for those who aren't, who knows, maybe you'll think about coming to study law with us here at the School of Law, University of Bradford. We are in the Lady Hill Court in the School of Law, a purpose-built court that was opened by Lady Hill of Richmond. And we're very proud to call her one of our honorary graduates. And we hope that in the next few days, over the next 3 days, we'll have an exciting piece of entertainment as well as an opportunity to learn for you. So please stay tuned. Let your friends know about this, create a bit of excitement around this, and let's have a bit of fun for the next 3 days. I want to say congratulations to the finalists today who were here. It was a stiff competition, and these 6 who are here are best of the best to be shortlisted. And I know that we are going to be having a really, really interesting time with them. Thank you all very much. And I think on that note, I'll leave the floor to the gladiators and all the other active participants. Sorry, I should have said, my name is Professor Ngobe Mesa. I am the head of the School of Law. Welcome to the Bradford University and Proctor and Hobbs annual mock competitions. Thank you.
None of you have done this before. Can I tell you this, and he won't mind me saying this, Mr. Walsh, who's prosecuting, hasn't prosecuted a criminal case before. I certainly haven't been a judge before. So just enjoy it. Have fun. Nothing to be... Is anybody nervous here? Well, I'm a nervous judge. But in fact, as a matter of interest, I came into this university in 1969 when I was a mere lad of 19 years old. And so it's nice to be back. Nobody's going to laugh at you, okay? It's just enjoy it, have a bit of fun, so we can crack on, right?
Your Honour, I think it was agreed that you would arraign the defendant, Carlton Ribeiro.
Yes. Mr. Ribeiro? You're before this court facing an allegation of assault occasioning actual bodily harm against Mr. Jaden on the 13th of March 2020. How do you plead?
Not guilty.
Thank you.
Your Honour, members of the jury, you will have heard that the defendant, Mr. Ribeiro, is charged with an offence pursuant to Section 47 of the Offences Against a Person Act 1861. And that is the offence of causing harm. It involves elements of intention and recklessness, and the defendant must be proved beyond a reasonable doubt to have recklessly or intentionally injured the complainant. I will address you, as will His Honour, at the end of these proceedings, as to the elements of the offence that you have to be satisfied of before you can find the defendant guilty or not guilty. But the facts are these. On the 1st of March last year, the defendant, together with a complainant, Mr. Jaden, and a number of other witnesses that you'll hear from today, were all in attendance at Prince's Nightclub in Bradford. You will hear from Mr. Jaden that he was dancing on the dance floor when he was struck and caused a contusion to his nose as a consequence of what turned out to be erratic dancing by the defendant. Mr. Jaden will explain that he was injured by this behaviour and a blow of sufficient force to cause his nose to bleed. You'll hear from others that were present at the time. You'll hear from a Mr. Philip Banks. Mr. Banks was sitting in the VIP area at the top of the nightclub, looking down over the dance floor, seeing what was happening below him. His evidence will be that he saw Mr. Ribeiro dancing erratically, waving his arms around, and causing a scene on the dance floor, which he says caused people to move away from him so as to protect themselves from him and his actions. And that evidence will be repeated by a further witness, the girlfriend of Mr. Banks, Miss Ashley Raspberry, who was present and went to the dance floor. She herself was injured by this man's reckless dancing. She didn't sustain any injury, and no charges are brought in respect of that injury. In those circumstances, it is clear, the prosecution say, that there was a defendant on the dance floor behaving in a way which was reckless and which has therefore caused injury. And that is my opening on behalf of the prosecution, Your Honour. And with the court's permission, I will call the complainant, Will Jaden. Mr. Jaden,
Sit down.
if you stand for a moment, sit down in due course. Can you repeat these words after me, please? I, Will Jaden, sincerely declare and affirm that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. If it makes you more comfortable, please sit down. Can you give your full name and address to the court, please?
Yeah, William Jaden, number 5, Richmond Road, Bradford, BD 15NP.
Can you recall where you were on the 1st of March 2020?
Well, the whole day, or just for the...
Where were you in the evening?
In the evening, yeah. Well, we went to Prince's, to the nightclub. We had a busy day at university, and we all went with a group of friends.
Okay. Who was with you?
Just some friends of mine. Who was there? George and Rifat and a couple of others. I can't remember exactly the group, but yeah.
And what time did you get there?
It was in the evening. It was quite late, about 11, half 11.
Had you been anywhere before?
Well, we were at university all day, bit of drinking at a friend's flat, and then we went to the club.
And when you arrived at the club, Prince's, what did you do?
The usual, bought a drink, spoke with friends, a little bit of dancing.
Where were your
nothing
friends?
out of the ordinary. Where were they?
Where were
they were there when we arrived.
Where were they specifically in the nightclub when you first spoke to them?
They were sat around some table, like some wallflowers at the side. So yeah.
Wallflowers?
Yeah, they were they're reserved types.
It's an expression,
Yes.
not a description.
Yeah, no.
You said you went and did some dancing.
Yeah.
Where did you dance?
Just in the dance floor in the middle. It's basically one, it's a square building. There's a dance floor in the middle, then around there's tables, and there's a bar at the end. So yeah, it's a relatively small place with a mezzanine up top for VIPs and what have you.
With whom did you dance?
On my own initially. Yeah, and then tried to coax some friends up to dance along with me.
Did they join you?
Yes, yeah, briefly.
Were you aware of anybody else on the dance floor?
Yeah, it was quite busy. Yeah.
Were you aware of anybody in particular? Anybody
Well,
you knew?
that I knew, not from recollection, no. No, there was nobody that I knew apart from the friends that were there. And when they were up dancing, they were dancing. But
So describe the atmosphere on the dance floor.
yeah, it's good fun. Yeah, everyone there was there having a good time.
Did you finish leaving the dance floor having had a good time?
I wouldn't describe it that way.
What happened?
What happened? I was kicked in the face. Let's get to brass tacks. I saw it. It came out from nowhere. A flying foot whacked me full in the face. And broke my nose.
Were you standing at the time?
I was. Yeah.
Were you standing upright?
Yeah.
How tall are you?
5'10".
Do you know who? Did you know at the time who had kicked you?
No, I didn't know the guy at the time.
Were you aware of the defendant before the incident?
Yeah, there was two of us that had to get some attention from the medics or from first aiders. I spoke with another Ashley during that time because we both.
My question was: were you aware of the defendant before the incident?
No.
Had you seen him?
No.
Had you seen how he was dancing?
There was someone on the dance floor that people were wary of. To be honest, I walked through the dance floor. It was. I mean, recollecting it, there was a bit of a throng, and somebody was in the middle. I just sort of ignored that and walked through.
Did you go near them?
Through.
Did you go near where the throng was?
Yes. Yeah.
Did you go near where Mr. Ribeiro was?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much indeed.
With the court's permission, I would like to ask some questions to Mr. Jaden.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Jaden, you was at the nightclub in March 2020?
That's right.
Yes. Who did you go with?
It's friends from university.
Okay, that's fine. And did you find your friends straight away? Did you meet up with them? Yeah.
Maybe straight away. Yeah.
So, from discussion with Mr. Ian, you said that you saw somebody on the dance floor that was creating a lot of havoc in a sense. Were you wary of that person?
Well, there was a way. I mean, you have to conceptualise the way that people were there. There was a bit of a circle. I described it as a throng earlier, but there's a bit of a circle, and then inside that there was the guy that hit me and that was dancing in this way. So people were sort of stood away from him, and I walked into that circle, fairly oblivious to what was going on.
So walking into the circle, did you see any risk of being hit at any point, or?
No.
So you didn't see the risk of the incident that has occurred with yourself?
No.
No. So you wouldn't say it was a foreseeable risk at all?
I don't know.
No.
Can you define it for me?
Foreseeable risk. So, like I said, is it something that you would have seen that would happen if you walked straight through and he would have hit you? Do you think there was?
No, I was fairly oblivious to what was going on.
Okay.
No, I just walked sort of through this circle. It wasn't like a cordon. It wasn't people holding people off, but people were stood back from him. On recollection. Not that I took very much notice of this at the time. I just sort of walked straight through the middle and got hit.
And did you know Mr. Ribeiro beforehand?
Nope.
No?
No.
So you had no interaction with him before the incident?
No.
That's fine. So do you think that he hit you on purpose with any intention?
No, I don't think so. No.
Okay, that's fine. That's all. Thank you.
Your Honour, I have no re-examination of this witness. Do you have any questions?
No.
Thank you. You can stand down. The prosecution calls Ashley Raspberry. Good afternoon, Miss Raspberry. Can you give your full name and address to the court, please?
Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Raspberry. I live at 53 Woodson Banks.
And if you can repeat these words after me, please. I, Ashley Raspberry,
I, Ashley Raspberry,
do solemnly
do solemnly
declare and affirm
declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
but not, and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. If it makes you feel more comfortable, please take a seat.
Thank you.
Do you recall the 1st of March 2020?
I do.
Do you recall where you were on the evening of that day?
Yes, I do.
And where was that?
I was at Prince's.
At Prince's Nightclub?
Yes.
And with whom were you there?
I was there with my boyfriend, Philip.
Is that Philip Banks?
Yes.
And were you with anybody else?
His work colleagues, they were celebrating a successful win.
Do you know Will Jaden?
No, I don't.
Do you know Alfonso Belair?
No.
And were you aware of, prior to this incident, the defendant, Carlton Ribeiro?
Yes, I went to school with Carlton, so I've known him for a number of years.
Thank you very much. Now, when you went to the nightclub, where did you go? Where did you seat yourself?
We were sat in the VIP lounge. We were sat there having some drinks, just having fun, really.
And where is that?
In Prince's Nightclub.
Forgive me, I'll be more precise. Where in the nightclub is that?
Well, they've got like a separate section for the VIP, so it was just around that section. We were all just there.
Okay, and what can you see from that
well, we could
position?
see other people at the bar having drinks. On the dance floor, we could see people dancing, having a good time.
So in the nightclub itself, can you describe where you were sitting insofar as the VIP bar was in relation to the dance floor?
I would say it was fairly close. I mean, from where we were sat, we could see the people dancing on the dance floor.
How clear was your view?
There was quite a lot of people. So I mean, if you imagine a dance floor with loads of people, I'm pretty sure you can tell what you'd be able to see.
Did you see the dance floor clearly?
Initially, obviously, when we got there, I was sat in the VIP section having drinks, but I myself went up to go dance after a while, so I was on the dance floor at some point.
So you went to dance on the dance floor also?
Yes, I did.
And who did you dance with?
Just to myself. I like to have a good time, so I was just dancing along with the music.
And when you were on the dance floor, what happened to you?
Well, I was dancing, and all of a sudden, I was whacked in the face. And then I looked to my right and I saw somebody on the floor, and I'd known something had gone on.
Did you know who it was at the time who had struck you?
Not at the time, no. I was dazed for a few seconds because I'd just been whacked in the eye. But afterwards, I did realise who it was.
Had you seen the person, the defendant, on the dance floor before you were injured?
Well, before we got on the dance floor, my boyfriend Philip was a bit apprehensive about me going, because he said, look, there's a guy on the dance floor who's acting a bit like a buffoon, I think he said. But it was Carlton, and like I said, I'd known Carlton for years, and he's harmless, so...
Would you please speak a little slower? I'm taking a note of this evidence.
Sure.
Thank you.
Would you like me to repeat that?
Yes, please.
So initially, my boyfriend was a bit apprehensive. He's a little bit older than me. He gets a bit quite jealous a little bit easily.
Just pause there.
Thank you.
Carry on.
Yeah, he gets jealous quite easily. So he didn't really want me to go out on the dance floor. But like I said, I really like dancing. So I wanted to have a good time. And I went onto the dance floor. And yeah.
So you said you did know Carlton and you knew him from school. Did you actually see him on the dance floor when you were on it?
Yes, I saw him on the dance floor when I was on it. I think we were dancing quite fairly close to each other.
And what was he doing?
Well, he was just dancing like Carlton does. I mean, anyone who knows Carlton will know that that's his dancing style.
Can you describe that style to us?
Yeah, he's a bit of a funny chap. You know, he likes to wave his hands around, jump, up and down, just have a bit of fun really, like any sort of normal person.
And did you see him jumping up and down and waving his arms around?
I mean, I can't really recall, but like I said, I know Carlton and I know his dancing style, and I was just there to have a good time, so I was in my own little world, really.
We know that you were struck, but there are no proceedings in respect of that injury before this court.
Yeah, I wasn't injured, just got hurt on the eye, really, that was it.
Thank you very much. No further questions, but there will be some more questions from my learned friend.
So, who did you go to with the nightclub? To the nightclub with?
My boyfriend and his work colleagues.
Okay, and where did you sit?
In the VIP lounge.
And why didn't you not go onto the dance floor when Philip had stopped you?
Because like I said, Philip, he's a bit jealous, you know, he doesn't really like me going out, you know, dancing with other people. And I think initially, because like I said, you know, he said that there was a buffoon on the dance floor was dancing, but like I said, it was just Carlton, so I didn't feel unsafe or anything like that.
So you didn't feel unsafe at all, no? Did you see any risk to yourself going onto the dance floor then?
No, not at all. I mean, it's a dance floor, you just go there to dance, don't you?
Yeah. So, did you see Will Jaden being hit by Carlton clearly at all?
I didn't see him initially get hit, but like I said, I got hit quite soon after.
Okay.
And after I had got hit, I did turn around and I did see that there was some sort of altercation that had happened on the floor.
And do you think that either you or Mr. Jaden was hit by purpose by Carlton?
By Carlton? No, definitely not. Like I said, he's harmless, and anyone who knows Carlton that just knows that that's just his dancing style, to be fair.
Do you think his behaviour was any different than a normal person's behaviour on a dance floor in terms of his dancing?
Like I said, it's Carlton's dancing. So if you knew Carlton, he would dance like that.
Would you expect anything different from anyone in the same shoes as him on a dance floor from what he was doing?
When you're on a dance floor, you're just dancing, having a good time, so you're just, you know, moving with the music. So if that's what happens, then no.
Yeah, so did you see any like risk to anyone around him while he was dancing before the incidents took place?
Risks to who?
To anyone around him in the nightclub?
No, I mean there wasn't any foreseeable risk, but like I said, everyone was just there to have a good time.
That's fine. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Excuse me. You have a question in re-examination, Your Honour. You've described the actions of the defendant as being perfectly normal for a dance floor.
Yeah.
You said you were struck. Remind me, where, please?
On my face.
And you didn't see that strike coming?
No, I didn't.
And you were dazed? Thank you. Your Honour, do you have any questions for the
No,
witness?
thank you.
The witness may leave. Third and final witness, Mr. Philip Banks, please. Thank you, Mr. Banks. If you can remain standing for the moment, can you give your full name and address to the court, please?
Philip Banks, 39 to 45 Wells Street, BD15NE.
And can you repeat these words after me, please? I do sincerely,
I do sincerely,
solemnly,
solemnly
declare and affirm
declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give,
that the evidence that I shall give,
the evidence I shall give,
evidence I shall give,
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Thank you. If it makes you feel more comfortable, please do sit down.
Thank you.
Mr. Banks, you're here to tell us about some of the events that occurred on the 1st March 2020. Do you remember that date?
I do.
Can you tell us where you were on the evening of that day, please?
We were at the Princess with a few of my friends and my girlfriend.
And which of the friends were you with?
From work. Can't remember. Yeah, George. Yeah, a few of them. Yeah.
A few friends from work.
Yeah.
Are you aware of the defendant, Carlton Ribeiro, before this event? Did you know him in advance of that evening?
No.
And did you know Alfonso Belair before?
No.
Are you aware of Mr. Will Jaden before?
Yeah.
You did know Mr. Jaden. How did you know Mr. Jaden?
He was from. I think he was just with the group. So.
Could I ask whoever it is, a mobile phone, please, to switch it off?
I remember
So-
Judge Scott, later Bradford County Crown Court, had a standing fine of £10
Yes.
for a
Well, I shall
mobile phone that
adopt-
rang.
Well, I shall adopt the same course, but with inflation, it will be considerably more than that. So will you please all make sure your mobile phones are switched on? Thank you.
You were aware of Mr. Jaden before the evening in question?
What do you mean by were you aware of?
Did you know him
In person, no, but I know him by name.
by name?
Yeah.
Now, when you arrived at the nightclub, what time was it, please?
Can't remember the time exactly, but I think it was quite late in the day.
Had you been anywhere else before?
We were at the friend's place. We were basically from work. We went to a friend's place and then went to Prince's.
So when you arrived...
Sorry, Mr. Watt, again, I'm having difficulty in hearing. So could you please try and
Yeah.
ask your witness?
We were at work. Shall I continue?
Well, if you can speak more clearly, if loudly, if that...
We were at work.
I need to hear your evidence of that, Mr. Banks. Thank you.
We were at work. Then we went over to a friend's place and then to Prince's.
You're not sure what time it was, but you say it was late.
Yeah.
And when you arrived at Prince's, where did you go?
We just sat at the VIP lounge, and that was it.
So can you describe the VIP lounge and where it is in the nightclub, please?
It's quite, to a side, and it was not in the center of the nightclub.
And what can you see from there?
You could see the dance floor. You could see the bar. Yeah.
In terms of the extent of the nightclub, how much of it could you see? Give me a percentage.
I'm not sure.
Give me the percentage of how much you could see the dance floor.
I think the entire dance floor.
Were you watching what was occurring on the dance floor?
Yes, I was.
And what can you see?
People were just dancing there.
Did you see the defendant?
Yes, I did.
And can you describe to the court what the defendant was doing, please?
The defendant was dancing, and obviously he was a bit tipsy, I suppose.
Dipsy?
Tipsy?
Tipsy?
Yeah.
You mean it appeared to you like he'd had some drinks?
Yeah. And he was dancing quite wildly, which, occurred to me that when my girlfriend was trying to go up there, I did tell her to be a bit cautious.
Why?
Because I don't think, rather I thought that, she could be hurt.
Why?
Because he was, he was all over the place, I think.
And doing what? Can you remember any specific action that caused you to be concerned about your girlfriend's safety?
I think he was jumping and swinging his arms quite wildly.
Did you see the incident where the complainant, Mr. Jaden, and indeed your girlfriend receive injuries? or be struck by the defendant?
No,
You did not see those incidents?
no.
Thank you very much. I have no further questions. If you can wait there, my learned friend may.
So, Mr. Banks, who did you go to the nightclub with?
With my friends and from work, and then my girlfriend.
Right, and did you not dance that night?
Yes, I did.
You did?
Yeah.
And why did you stop Ashley from going onto the dance floor initially?
Because I thought, she might. There was quite a bit of a crowd there, and there was one of these persons who was, quite a bit too bubbly, I would say, for the crowd. So I just didn't want her to be there. That's it.
Right. And did you see the defendant, Mr. Ribeiro, on the dance floor?
I did.
You did.
Mhm.
And did you see anyone surrounding him or anything around him?
Yes,
Perhaps.
I did.
You did.
Hmm.
Right. And did you see Mr. Jaden being hit at all?
I didn't see him being hit, but I saw. Obviously, I knew that someone was hit afterwards.
So you didn't see?
Per se, no.
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 Oh, okay. And I'd like to just question that. Can you just maybe rethink that? Just because in your witness statement you do mention that you did see him kick Mr. Jaden in the face.
I can't recall having seen exactly that he had kicked on the face.
Okay. And did you know about Mr. Jaden being hit in the face before your girlfriend was hit?
I can't recall.
You can't recall?
No.
Okay. That's fine. Thank you.
Right.
I'll make this observation as fair-minded prosecution counsel. I was intending to re-examine in order to reinforce the point that was being made in this witness's witness statement that he saw the event occur. However, he did not disclose that to me in evidence in chief, and therefore it would be wrong for me to do so. No doubt defence counsel will address you on the differences between his evidence in chief and his witness statement and cross-examination in due course. So it would be improper of me to re-examine in those circumstances. Forgive me, and that is the third and final witness on behalf of the prosecution. I now rest on behalf of the prosecution.
Your Honour, I would like to call the first witness, my defendant, Mr. Carlton Ribeiro.
It's been agreed, Your Honour, that in light of the restricted number of staff members in the courtroom due to coronavirus regulations, I will swear in the witness on behalf of the defence.
Yes.
Can you give your full name to the court, please?
Carlton Ribeiro,
Your address?
19 Jonica Drive, and the postcode is BD17 9QE.
Thank you. Can you repeat these words after me, please? The evidence I sincerely declare and affirm.
I sincerely declare and affirm
That the evidence I shall give.
that the evidence I shall give
Shall be the truth.
shall be the truth,
The whole truth.
the whole truth,
And nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. May the
Thank you.
defendant be seated, Your Honour.
Yes.
Thank you.
Your Honour, I would like to examine the defendant with your permission.
Yeah.
Mr. Ribeiro, where were you in March 2020?
The whole month.
No, on the 13th of March 2020.
I was at Prince's Nightclub towards the end of the night.
Okay, and why did you go to the nightclub?
We heard about lockdown restrictions and we thought that we might as well have an event before we go off. So yeah, that's the reason that we went to the nightclub.
Okay, that's fine. And did you go with anybody?
Yeah, I went with a couple of friends of mine. One of them, Alfonso.
Okay. And did you have any pre-drinks or
Yes,
did?
plenty of them.
Do you remember much from that night?
It is a little bit of a blur, but there's obviously certain events that I can definitely recollect, although I probably wish that I couldn't.
Okay, that's fine. And so at the club, what did you do? Like, were you with Alfonso or?
Yeah, we were together at the initial stages of the night. Went for a couple of drinks at the bar, ended up dancing. I remember at one particular time my favourite song came on, which obviously prompted me to dance.
Okay. And when your favourite song came on, what was your reaction to that? Like, how did you behave?
Buzzing.
Okay. And how were the people around you?
So obviously my dancing became a little bit more excited as my favourite song was on. So a little bit of a ring formed around me. People started gassing me up, giving me a bit of a cheer. So yeah.
That's fine. At that point, did you think that you was doing anything wrong while just having fun dancing?
If I'm honest with you, I don't believe that a nightclub is a place for people not to dance. So if that answers your question.
That's fine. And do you recall any incident happening due to your dancing?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay. And so what was the first incident? Would you like to tell the court what you can remember?
Well, the first instance of things changing in the night were perhaps when the favourite song came on. It's not unusual. An absolute timeless classic, if you ask me. After that point, the circle formed. I started dancing a little bit more, and then I performed my signature move, which is something that I've performed many times over many years, whereby basically a star jump. You know what a star jump is?
Yeah.
Star jump, but kick your legs out properly. And unfortunately, my leg managed to catch someone, and my arm managed to catch another.
Do you recall how Will must have been hurt by your star jump at all? Was there any reason for him to be? Was he close by? Or?
Well, yes, he was close by. I think that he perhaps entered the circle without my knowledge. I think that's all I can say in regards to that. I don't recall an awful lot of the event either.
Okay. Did you purposely have any intention to hurt Will?
Of
at
course
all?
not.
No? That's fine. And then, after that incident, who did you bump into?
That was one of my friends from school, Ashley Raspberry.
It's fine. Did you have any conversation with her at all?
Afterwards, I'd explained as to how sorry I was. Before, we'd kind of had a little bit of a catch-up. Nothing too extensive, as obviously we were on a dance floor. Music was a bit loud.
Why was you apologising to Miss Raspberry?
As I'd accidentally struck her with my hand whilst I was doing the star jump.
That's fine. And after that, did you have any interactions with anybody else apart from Ashley?
I had an interaction with her boyfriend.
Okay. And where did you have this interaction with her boyfriend?
This was as I was leaving the club.
Okay. And whilst having an interaction with her boyfriend, what was said?
He was basically pleading on with me about how I've made this grave mistake, so on and so forth. I apologised multiple times, but eventually it kind of weighed upon me too much. The straw broke the camel's back, and I ended up saying something to him. I ended up saying that if you want me to hit you on purpose, I will do.
Okay. But did you have any intention to fight him at all?
Absolutely not. It's just when someone's pestering you and bothering you, you'll say anything to get out of the situation.
Okay. And what was your reason for the initial interaction with Mr. Banks?
I didn't have any interaction with Mr. Banks. He came up to me. It wasn't something I had an interaction, sorry, but it wasn't of my own initiation.
That's fine. And what point did you want to get across to him during the interaction that you did?
Ultimately, that I'm very apologetic about the event. Ashley's my friend. I would never do anything to hurt any of my friends, and I just wanted to let him know that it was an accident. I didn't do it on purpose. But he wouldn't have any of that, and he continued and continued and continued, which is obviously what happened.
Did you foresee any risks due to your dancing style at all? Like you hurting anybody or?
If I'm completely honest with you, a few of my friends had said things to me, but I didn't believe that they were being reasonable in what they stated, as we'd gone to a nightclub to dance. You don't go to a nightclub to read a book or anything to that effect, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Your Honour. I'll hand over to prosecution now.
I'm grateful. I think it's very clear that you've been drinking.
Yes.
It's very clear that you've been drinking a lot.
Yes.
In fact, you can't remember how much you had to drink.
Not particularly.
Well, your witness statement to the police says everything is a bit of a blur to me now.
Yes.
You were drunk, weren't you?
Yes.
No idea what was going on, really, had you?
I'd say that I definitely had an idea of what was going on. I wasn't to the state of complete inebriation, but by the same token, I was fairly intoxicated, yes.
Yeah. In fact, let's be fair, the only thing you can remember is these three things. One, that you went dancing.
Yes.
Two, that your dancing was erratic and
I
you
couldn't
do
agree
high
to
kicks. And three, there was an incident outside the nightclub between Mr. Banks and yourself.
I
That's
couldn't
what you
agree
can
to the
remember.
second point, but the rest of them, yes.
Well, let's have a look at what your second point is then, insofar as how you dance. We know that you do star kicks.
Yes.
These aren't gentle star kicks, are they? They are quite extravagant. Your feet reach significant heights.
Yeah, that'd be fair to say.
Yeah. I think we heard from Mr. Jaden that he's around 5'8", and we know that you kicked him in the head.
Yes.
Is that typical of you, being able to do a star jump so high that a man of 5'8" could be kicked in the face?
It's not my fault I'm so athletic.
It's not your fault that you're so athletic.
Yes.
Well, let's just put humour to one side for a moment and see whether you learn or live to regret that comment. I would like you to explain to me, please, why being able to kick that high could not be reasonably described in your mind as being reckless.
Ultimately, it's a dance move that I've practiced many times over many years. It's never hurt anyone before. This is the first incident of that occurring.
Do you care whether somebody's injured or not when you're on the dance
Of course I
floor?
do. Of course.
Do you feel a tinge of regret in this case that this person has been injured?
Yes, 100%.
You 100%?
Yeah, 100%.
Because you know, don't you, that in the way that you dance, being so athletic, for which of course you make no apology, and being able to raise your feet to that sort of height, somebody could get injured, couldn't they?
Somebody could get injured.
And
but
somebody in fact did get injured, didn't they?
Yes.
So your evidence to this court is that you are aware of the risk, but yet you still took it. Is that right?
I'm not sure if I could agree to that.
That's what your evidence is.
I don't believe so.
Well, we'll see what His Honour and the jury make of that. I have no further questions for this witness. Ronna, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
More questions?
You have any questions in re-examination?
Yeah.
You do.
So, Your Honour, I would like to address the fact that the fact that the prosecution are making it about my defendant being wary of the risks. Could you tell me, this dance move that you've done, has it ever hurt anyone before?
As I've stated, no,
Right.
apart from this event.
And did anybody talk to you about the risks of the dance move itself?
It's difficult to say. People had warned me that my dancing style was erratic, but that can be taken in a plethora of ways. Ultimately, that could mean that the girls talked to us. That could mean a number of things. So I didn't really point the fact that it was going to hurt someone directly.
Okay. And, of course, Mr. Jaden had been hit. You also hit Miss Raspberry. Were you like, do you feel regret towards it?
Of course I feel remorse for them being hurt, but I also acknowledge the fact that it wasn't my intention to hurt them.
And how did you show that remorse?
I apologised profusely to both of them.
So you apologised?
Yeah, 100%.
So you had no intention at all?
No.
Thank you, Your Honour.
Yes, is that you?
Yeah.
You have no
Yeah, I've got. So I would like to call my last witness, Mr. Alfonso Belair. Thank you.
Mr. Belair, can you give your full name and address to the court, please?
Alfonso Belair, 26 Pembroke Terrace, Bradford, BD9 3QT.
Thank you. And you can repeat those words after me, please. I do sincerely,
I do sincerely,
solemnly declare and affirm
solemnly declare and affirm
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the
and
truth.
nothing but the truth.
Please take a seat.
So, Mr. Belair, you was at the nightclub with, who did you go with?
With some friends, with Carlton, and there was Joffrey was there, and Jade, and Alison.
That's fine. And did you have any pre-drinks at all? Were you drunk at all?
Well, we ended up at the nightclub at Prince's, so we'd had a few drinks, yeah, different places on the way.
Were you with Mr. Rivera the whole night?
Well, we're obviously, in different groups, and Carlton does like dancing, so he's always on the dance floor. I'm not such a good mover, really. So.
And would you say Mr. Rivera was drunk?
Well, did have quite a few drinks, but it was a night out. It's part and parcel, isn't it? Yeah, I guess.
And what was the impact of them drinks on him?
Well, as I say, Carlton, drinks or no drinks, he does like his dancing, but he did become a bit more erratic, really, a bit, more than normal, perhaps.
Why would you say his dancing became erratic? What was he doing?
We sort of swinging his arms around a bit, and just, a bit lost control, sort of, yeah.
Do you find swinging arms about in a nightclub unusual?
Well, no, we've all got our different dance moves, and Carlton, he does like to strut his stuff, yeah.
At any point, were you worried about his dance moves?
Well, I was a bit, and I did tell him to, just take it easy, calm down a bit.
And did you warn him about hurting anyone at all, or?
Well, I did say, one of these days, someone, just might get hurt, because when you're sort of doing these big moves and, swinging your arms around, things like that can happen, I guess. So I told him, yes, one of these days. So I can't remember exactly what I said, but, you might hurt someone.
And what was his response to that?
I think he was in the moment. He was on the dance floor. So didn't seem to really take that much notice.
And why do you think he didn't take notice?
Well, I guess he just carried on with his dancing style, and then next thing I knew, he did his sort of star jump move, and someone got kicked in the face.
That's fine. And did you see that incident of someone being kicked in the face?
Yes, yeah, I saw that part of it.
Okay. And did you see the aftermath of Mr. Jaden being kicked in the face?
Yes, well, I didn't know it was Mr. Jane at the time, but yeah, I understand it was that happened to him, and then someone else apparently got hurt. Another dancer. Again, I think that was Ashley, and I understand. And when I saw things were getting a bit out of control, I sort of, with other friends, we tried to get him off the dance floor.
Okay. And after getting him off the dance floor, what did you tell him to do, or what did you say to him after the incidents?
Well, I said, really, you ought to go outside and get some fresh air.
That's fine.
I stayed. He went outside, and I stayed in the club.
That's fine. Thank you. Your Honour, I would also like to mention that my witness has some differentiation in his witness statement, as he said that he did not see Mr. Jaden being hit in the face, but from discussion he says that he did. What was the prosecution?
Doubts the defence will use that second discrepancy that they've ably identified in their submissions to the jury.
That is, Mr. Walsh is correct. The point that you've just made, if you wish to, should be made in your final submissions to me. Is that the close of the defence case?
Yes.
And it's for you now to
Yes, Your Honour.
address me.
Well, I need to cross-examine.
I beg your pardon.
I need to cross-examine. I've not cross-examined this
I'm
witness.
so sorry, yes.
So he's got a history of erratic dancing, this chap.
Well, it's just Carlton style, really. Is like his dance moves, big dance moves.
You've seen him do these high kicks before, his legs right up here.
Well, he has got an erratic sort of off-the-wall dance style, yes.
You were concerned about him because you told him that somebody's going to get hurt?
Yes, I can't remember exactly what I said, but yeah, I did try and calm him down a bit.
So it was clear to you on that particular occasion, the way he was dancing, something was going to happen.
Well, I did say, I told him to calm down and that, he might hurt someone one of these days. I didn't know it was going to happen that day. But
You were concerned?
Yeah.
You said that in your evidence that he's always erratic, but something to the line of it's worse when he's drunk or been drinking.
Yeah, well,
Right.
as I say, but, quite often have been
Yeah.
drinking when we're out
Such
dancing.
that, to use your words, there's sometimes a loss of control.
Did I say that?
You did. Is that right? Accurate?
Well, as I say, he's got these big dance moves, and his arms are swinging about. Yeah, a bit erratic and a bit out of.
Which is worse when he's been drinking.
I guess so.
And he'd been drinking a lot on his own admission.
Well, we'd been for a few drinks before, and there was a crowd of us, so I wasn't keeping track exactly.
Was the evening all a blur to you?
Well, I remember reasonably well.
So he was more drunk than you?
Difficult to say, really.
Well, he describes the evening as a bit of a blur.
Yeah. No, well, it's reasonably clear to me.
Yes, thank you very much indeed. I have no further questions, Your Honour.
We have no further questions. Your Honour, that is the case on behalf of the defence.
You care to address the Chief?
So the...
It's time for you to make your defence.
Oh, is it my... Okay, that's fine. So, Your Honour, members of the jury, on behalf of my client, the defendant in the case, Mr. Rivera, I would like to make the following submissions. The defence are neither denying nor disputing the actus reus of assault occasioning actually bodily harm, contrary to Section 47 of the Offences Against the Persons Act 1861 in March 2020. The defence, however, put forward the question, does the evidence in this case allow the court to make a decision made beyond reasonable doubt that my client, Mr. Ribeiro, demonstrated intent or recklessness to the assault against Mr. Jaden. This is simply due to the fact that there is arguably not enough evidence suggesting the mens rea of assault occasioning actually bodily harm to Mr. Jaden, contrary to the Section 47 of the Offences Against the Persons Act 1861. My Lord, members of the jury, we make submission be on the grounds of, in this case, my client's intention to cause assault occasioning actually bodily harm to Mr. Jaden is opposed by the witness statements provided by prosecution witnesses. They all do say that they don't think that my client, Mr. Ribeiro, hit Mr. Jaden on purpose. So upon questioning both the prosecution witnesses, it can be established, mirroring my client's statement, that injury to Mr. Jaden was not on purpose and my client was just trying to have a good time. Also, from further questions, Mr. Will Jaden, I hope it is clear that my client had no reason or intent to cause Mr. Will Jaden harm. 2. I would like to address the court regarding whether my client recklessly caused Mr. Will Jaden harm. The prosecution's witnesses, Mr. Philip Banks, mentions in his witness statement that my client acted recklessly. However, the defence would again like the court to consider whether there is enough evidence for there to be proved without reasonable doubt that my client saw the risk of his dancing resulting in him causing Mr. Will Jaden injuries. Yes, Mr. Belair saw the risk of my client's dancing style potentially could result in physical harm to another individual. However, in reference to the Cunningham recklessness, Mr. Belair seeing the risk of my client's dancing style would not be enough. This would be solely down to the requirement that for recklessness to be proved, there is a requirement that the defendant actually sees the risk rather than whether the risk was obvious or would have been seen by a reasonable person. Also, when considering the submissions on behalf of the defence, I asked the court to take into consideration that my client was intoxicated as part of the evidence in deciding whether the court deems the assault was the defendant's, my client's purpose, or whether my client saw the injuries to Mr. Will Jaden as a result of his dancing style as virtually certain. The defence would argue that the level of intoxication in my client's case prevents my client from the necessary mens rea of the crime in question as in R.V. Savage. I'd also like to mention that from Mr. Jaden's witness statement and other witness statements, there is no clear indication of how the incident between Mr. Jaden and Mr. Ribeiro took place. No one actually was able to see it fully as well. Thank you, Your Honour.
In normal circumstances, of course, the prosecution would have addressed you. We're not doing that on this occasion. In normal circumstances, you would now direct the jury as to the law, summarise the facts of the case, and dismiss them. But otherwise, I think that draws to an end.
I take it,
proceedings.
Could you help me with this, Mr. Walsh? My understanding is it is not part of the Crown's case that the defendant acted intentionally.
No.
No, thank you very much.
But he did act recklessly.
Yes, I'm obliged. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the jury, it's now for me to sum up the case and simply to briefly let you know what your role is. You've probably seen many television programmes, dramas involving police and crime, etc. But let me clarify our respective positions. My position as the judge in this case, and indeed in any case, is to advise as to any issues of law, and you must listen to those to my advice and not challenge that in any sense. It may be that you may have difficulty sometimes in certain areas of law in perhaps agreeing whether the law is correct or whatever, but today and indeed in every day you must take from me the guidance that I give you in relation to law. Matters of fact are for you. I cannot interfere with that. You've heard the evidence, and indeed, Mr. Walsh, is not able to interfere in any way with your finding of fact. That is your prerogative as a jury in this case. So it leaves me to simply sum up what you heard. The allegation, Mr. Ribera, is that he committed on the 30th of March 2020 an act of assault occasioning actual bodily harm. There is no magic in that offence, members of the jury. It means what it is, actual bodily harm. So if you're satisfied that actual bodily harm was caused in this case, and the friend who prosecutes has been good enough to indicate to you that the defendant did not act intentionally, and indeed that's borne out by 2 or 3 of the witnesses. So there's no question here of him intending. But what the prosecution case is, and this is a matter for you, did he behave recklessly? Because if you take the view that he did behave recklessly and thereby caused this offence, then you will find the defendant guilty. What is recklessness? Again, there's no magic legal definition. It's simply behaviour which the defendant might have appreciated involved a risk. How are you going to apply that test? It's what a reasonable man might regard in the circumstances in which this defendant found himself. You may think that the defendant was reckless in the sense that he was performing this dance with arms and legs akimbo in near vicinity of other people, and indeed unfortunately for Mr. Hayden, he was the victim of that behaviour. I need to make clear to you that there is an allegation that Miss Strawberry was assaulted. That is not before you today. Mr. Rivera has not been charged with that offence, but you are entitled to look at all the circumstances in this case in terms of ascertaining Mr. Rivera's guilt or innocence, and you're entitled to take his behaviour to Miss Strawberry into account. Although again, there's no allegation that he behaved intentionally, and indeed he apologised. He says he apologised to both Mr. Hayden and Miss Raspberry, and the prosecution, as I understand it, don't take issue with that. So that simply goes to his state of mind when the violence was caused. That leads me now to a principle which Miss Darnley didn't address you, but it forced me to do that. What is the responsibility on you today? It's a high, you might call it's a high bar to climb. The Crown, it's not for the defendant to prove his innocence. That is a long established history of criminal trials in this country. And whatever your views of that, whether that's a good or a bad thing, it is for the Crown to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Mr. Rivera is guilty. Suspicion is not enough. For you to go away and to think there's no smoke without fire, for example, is a course of action you shouldn't take. It's a matter of, are you sure beyond reasonable doubt that Mr. Rivera committed this offence? And if so, then you will find him guilty. Briefly, to sum up the evidence, you know that in March 2020, Carlton Ribera went for an evening out at Princess, a nightclub in town. After a few drinks, it suggested and not denied that Carlton had a fairly extravagant dancing style in which he swung his arms up and down and performed what he described as an occasional star jump. You've heard from his witness, Mr. Belair, that he'd been warned But if he wasn't careful, he was going to hurt somebody. So you may take the view that, having listened to that, if you accept that warning that had been given, it may support a suggestion that the defendant was reckless. It's accepted that Mr. Carlton had drunk, perhaps to excess. Certainly he was inebriated, and decided to ignore any warnings that had been given by his friends and to continue in a crowded dance floor. He then performed a star jump and then kicked Will Jayden in the face, breaking his nose. You don't have any medical evidence before you, but it's not, that injury is not challenged by the defence. You know then that Mr. Ribera's friends dragged him off the dance floor, and you then know, as I've already touched upon, he apologised to Mr. Hayden and Miss Raspberry. That is a summary of the evidence that you've heard today. You may think it's not a long and complicated case, but it now falls for you to reach the decision as to guilt or innocence. So perhaps the jury could be taken out, please, into the jury room.
At that point, all would rise and the court would be adjourned until the jury were
Yes,
ready.
yes.
In other words, now I draw these proceedings to a close.
Yes,
and now
thank you very much.
prosecution.
Yes.
With a sigh of relief.
Before you go, you should all bow to me, by the way.
Excuse me, never had it before.
Okay.